Welcome back. I'm excited to share with you today some important truths about relationships that are often misrepresented and therefore misunderstood in our society. This misunderstanding leads to confusion about how we should behave in relationships. I want to highlight the word should because if we have a belief about something, anything, it really informs how we feel and therefore how we behave. In our culture, we are so much less motivated by the we and focus on the I. And with independence as a core value, it makes all relationships pretty challenging. Should I depend on my partner for emotional or financial support? Am I only a healthy person if I'm completely autonomous? What does not depending on others look like in all of my relationships? Today, I want to explore something called the dependency paradox, which tells us that the more effectively dependent people are on one another, the more daring they become. It turns out that our ability to step into the world on our own depends on our knowledge that there is at least one person we can count on. This might be confusing at first glance. How can we be more independent by becoming thoroughly dependent on someone else? Another way to say this is that when our emotional needs are met, we can turn our attention outward and devote ourselves to other areas of our lives that give us satisfaction. If you've ever been told that you're too needy, I'm betting that you were in a relationship where your needs were not getting met. Most people are only as needy as their unmet needs. What do people do in this dynamic? Well, sometimes they break up, they lose connection, they give up on being close, or some just accept a dissatisfying relationship. And some people live in emotionally abusive relationships. Let's talk about some real cases and see if you can identify with either of these stories. Remember, it's not always happening just in our romantic relationships. You may feel your needs are not getting met with your mother, your friend, your adult children. I recently had a session with a woman in her 40s we will call Liz. She's been single a few years now. She's beautiful, smart, and funny. She was telling me a story about her interactions with a man that she was crazy about. They had dated for over a year, and he was a little older and lived about 2 hours away. He seemed to be crazy about her and then suddenly broke it off via text. Yes, that's right, a text. His story was that he didn't want a long distance relationship, and it didn't work for him. Well, she'd always lived 2 hours away, and they had never discussed this as an issue. She began to doubt herself and wondered if she had made up that they were really good for each other and that what they had felt so real. He seemed crazy about her. After the breakup, she tore her memory apart, analyzing what she had missed. He had told her he had had an unhappy marriage that ended because he and his wife grew apart. He could never please his wife. No matter what he did, it wasn't enough. And that he hadn't been in a long-term relationship since his divorce in 2016. He would often cancel opportunities to be together just after a fantastic weekend. Recently, he has popped back into her life and said he misses her. She had spent the better part of the year recovering from that breakup. What should she do now? Another client we will call Allie began her relationship with a powerful connection. The couple spent lots of times together. What seemed like the person who checked all the boxes finally had arrived. Her friends and family liked him. Her friends were excited for her until they started to see that Allie's generally fun-loving self was becoming preoccupied with this person. Some wrote it off that she was in love, but others close to her started to see that the preoccupation was spilling into other areas of her life. She was constantly checking her phone at work and at home. She canceled a girls' weekend that she had looked forward to just in the hopes that he would call. He was canceling plans at the last minute. He gave her just enough positive feedback that she convinced herself that he was just busy. All the while, she was on edge. She had never been in a relationship like this. Allie tried to suppress the ruminating and the analyzing, and then finally she stopped telling her friends about him because she didn't want them to know. She later told me that she didn't tell me about her disappointments because she was too afraid that I might disapprove too. Looking back after he broke up with her, she recalls so many messages that may have helped her see the warning signs that she ignored. He mentioned things like he had never been in a committed relationship for longer than a year. He found that most women wanted too much. Women needed constant attention. He would tell her, I can't text all the time. I'm a physician. He also said he had never met the right girl. Allie spent a whole year ignoring the signs that this person might be struggling with something that I believe that he wasn't even aware of. Allie is still in love with a guy. What does she do? So many of us have had this experience at some time or another. Sometimes it's with a romantic partner, and sometimes it's with a friend. And if you have had any relationship which feels like you are preoccupied and wondering what you've done wrong to push this person away, or wonder how you can fix things, you might be caught in this dynamic. I'm sure many of you have heard the term on Instagram, TikTok, who is an avoidantly attached person. What I want to share with you today goes deeper than social media hype. I want to help you understand more about attachment styles with the hope that this deeper understanding will help you better understand yourself, your partner, your child, your mother, or your friend. So attachment theory goes way back. A researcher named John Bowlby, he asserted that we are programmed by evolution to seek out a few special people in our lives that we attach to, and we make them precious to us. Prehistorically, people who didn't have people to protect them ended up as prey. So we are really wired to connect. We are wired to depend on others. Yet for so many of us today, depending on people has not always turned out well. Our earliest attachments begin with our primary caretakers. As wonderful or as difficult as these parents or primary caretakers were, each of us carries with us unmet needs, some more than others. I promise you that those unmet needs show up in your relationships today. So if you had just a little structure, you had little reliability, it's normal for you to crave someone who will honor their agreements. And when they don't, you won't just feel disappointed. It will be more visceral. The lack of reliability triggers your need for trust and predictability. Because of this old unmet need, you really need people to show up for you. Unless you and this person are aware of where this comes from, it may appear that you're overreacting. You may lash out. Your reaction may be perceived as over the top. The person may feel attacked and dismiss your concern, and you may have a big fight over something that on the surface feels small. This will only reinforce for you your need to withdraw and depend more on yourself. It's always the same. The only person I can count on is me. This all happens so quickly that the trust bond is cut. Relationships rarely die because of one big thing. The death of a relationship is caused by a million little cuts over time without repair. If you had caretakers who either smothered you in an effort to protect you, or if you had parents who gave you very little freedom, you may have developed a high need for space in relationships. When people get too close to you, it might feel suffocating. The men in my case studies most likely came from families where they were smothered, ignored emotionally, or experienced love as painful. There are too many examples for us to go through each one here, but I want you to see that our unmet needs show up in conflicts with the people we love, and then we don't know how to have a safe conversation with that person where they can hear our need. Why is that? because typically we tell them our needs in the way that it sounds like a demand, or we criticize them for not doing the thing. Sometimes we shut down, and sometimes we don't even ask for what we need for fear of being denied or being labeled as too needy. Some of our unmet needs are not even conscious, and that is where good therapy comes in. So let's start in childhood, where attachment begins. Mary Ainsworth, another developmental theorist, was fascinated by children, their need to explore. And she investigated how children play and learn, and she concluded two really important things in her studies, widely known in the attachment field as the strange situation test. One, in an attachment figure in the room was enough to allow a child to go out to a previously unknown environment and explore with confidence. The presence is known as a secure base. And two, a secure base is a prerequisite for a child's ability to explore, develop, and learn. As a parent, aunt, uncle, grandparent, we can see the implications of this study. For today's podcast, we're just trying to tie childhood attachment to adult attachment. But as a parenting expert, I want to spend a moment highlighting how this secure base is a foundational requirement for learning. Imagine how this basic need influences the academic, social, emotional success of children in poverty, those born to parents preoccupied with addiction, children who are neglected or abused, or what about the children who are unwanted? Dr. Brian Baker, a researcher, studies the impact of marital discord on our blood pressure and heart disease. Can we get physically sick over time from a relationship that does not meet our basic needs of attachment? He found that having a partner who fulfills our basic attachment needs can help us remain emotionally and physically healthier. People in supportive relationships live longer. Having a partner who is inconsistently available can literally stunt our growth and stymie our health. So how do we find a partner who will be this secure base for us and with us? How can we become this partner for our partner? If we aren't in a relationship where we are feeling supported, how do we help our partner take on this life-altering role? Today's experts offer us myths like happiness is an inside job and you should be able to take care of yourself. You need to have clear boundaries or you're codependent. While codependency is a very relevant term for families dealing with addiction, many experts have generalized this to all relationships. This is a fallacy and can lead to chronic disappointment in our primary relationships. It's based on facts that we already have described. Like it or not, our partners regulate our blood pressure, our heart rate, our breathing, and the levels of hormones in our blood. We really cannot biologically separate these entities. How can we be expected to maintain a high level of differentiation between ourselves and our partners if our basic biology is influenced by them? For a deeper dive into your attachment style, I recommend this book, Attached: The New Science of Adult Attachment and How It Can Help You Find and Keep Love by Levine and Heller. A great deal of my content today comes from this cutting-edge book on attachment theory. In this book, you can take an attachment style inventory and learn how you can be more intentional about moving toward a secure base. If you do not want to purchase the book, you can take a validated adult attachment questionnaire by going online to Dr. Chris Fraley's website. This will also help you discover your attachment style. And you can find this website in my podcast notes. Listen to the following descriptions and see if you can't identify with your attachment style. All right, let's start with A. You feel comfortable with intimacy with your romantic partner and don't find yourself obsessing much about the relationship. You know your partner loves you and you feel confident in their commitment. If this is a good description of your romantic relationship, you are probably securely attached. B, if you crave intimacy and closeness but have lots of insecurities about the status of your relationship and little and big things your partner does or doesn't do set you off, you are probably anxiously attached. C, if you feel comfortable when when you become uncomfortable when things become too intimate and value your independence and freedom more than the relationship, and you really don't worry about your partner's commitment, you are probably avoidantly attached. D, if you are both uncomfortable and very concerned about your partner's availability, you are a rare combination of attachment anxiety and avoidance, and only a small segment of our population falls into this category. The good news is that attachment styles are stable but plastic. I was once very anxious in my primary relationship, and due to that pain, I suffered from abandonment issues. This was a reaction to my abandonment. When this happens, people lose trust in needing someone and attempt to protect themselves by avoiding intimacy. I'm happy to report that I'm no longer anxious nor avoidant. I credit this to my attendance in a Getting the Love You Want workshop while I was still single. I learned that because of my childhood attachment, I was attracted to men who were avoidant, which guaranteed that I would experience abandonment. I also want to give credit to my partner who loves me unconditionally and was so patient with me as I developed trust in him. This took time, and he gave me the gift of space. Feeling secure in my primary relationship has given me a great deal of freedom, where I can take risks in the world and become more of who I was meant to be. Now, I often have couples come to my office who are anxious and they're in the anxious avoidant dance, but the couple loves one another. The avoidant partner would not be coming to therapy unless they wanted the relationship. Remember, the avoidant wants and craves intimacy and can experience deep intimacy early in the relationship. But as the relationship progresses, he, she, they begin to need to pull away out of a survival response. Their fear of intimacy kicks in. The dance begins. This is profoundly confusing for their partner. They are each confused about how to proceed until they each understand the dance, where it began, how they can develop a more secure relationship with each other, and how to move forward. The avoidant style partner often looks at first glance like they don't want intimacy. The anxious partner often looks irrational and needy and wanting something that the other can't give. The anxious partner may feel either shame around having needs or angry because they aren't getting their needs met. They often lash out at their partner out of frustration. I'm encouraged as I see these couples in this dance because I know that they're fighting for the relationship, each in their own way. We have only opened the box today of the codependency myth. I urge you to learn more about yourself and others regarding attachment. One important tool we can all practice today, right now, is attunement. Listening with our full attention, putting our phones down, being present for the people we love is the most precious gift we have to offer. Becoming intentional, present person requires energy and practice. In our distracted world, we can show our love and commitment with this one act. I truly hope that learning about the powerful force of attachment in all of your relationships and effective ways to harness it will make a significant difference in your life. I know it has helped many of my clients and students. It certainly has changed me and all of my relationships. Those listeners who live in the U.S., we are preparing for a holiday called Thanksgiving. In our blended family, including my former husband, his wife, our daughter, my husband, Kevin, his children, and all 4 grandchildren, celebrate this holiday together. Is it a Norman Rockwell? No. But is it good? Do we laugh? and eat great food? Do we watch children play together? Do we watch the adult children develop their own relationships? Are we modeling for them forgiveness and moving forward with love? Yes, to all of the above. And I ask you to be intentional about how you want to show up this year. Sometimes, for many people, being grateful can be difficult. Next week, I will have the honor of interviewing a friend and colleague in Israel, Orly Warman. She's a senior faculty member of Imago International Training Institute. She is practicing in Israel, and she will share with us her experience of what it's been like living through this last year, through this war. I know that when she and her colleagues write about their experience, I am deeply moved and grateful for the peace we have in our country. While we suffer from a huge political divide, we cannot fully appreciate the idea that we are not living in a war zone. If you find yourself struggling with gratitude during this time, it is a good time to take inventory of what you appreciate. What is good in your world? I am very grateful to Orly for her willingness to share her experience, and I look forward to seeing you there next week. Thank you for joining me today on the Relationship Blueprint. Unlock your power of connection. Remember, to be truly connected, we want and need to depend on others. They need to depend on us. So go out, be present for someone today, listen for unmet needs, and express yours. See you next time on the Blueprint.